It's 1951. America and the Soviet Union are playing with old German missiles so they can build newer and bigger ones to nuke each other with. But while they do that, a newcomer has decided to start and speedrun their way through the space race. North Korea launches the first astronaut into Earth orbit and back again. How did this happen? Alright, sure, let's go with North Korea. That's like the opposite side of the planet from Florida, so I think that's far enough. And what else will this cursed timeline create? Hello everyone, welcome back to Film Your Productions, where my attempt to play realistic Kerbal Space Program veered off into a long-form North Korea meme. But that's okay, we've just completed our first crewed orbit around the Earth and recovered that Kerbal, so we have plenty of money and science to begin working on our next goal. So we're going to check the mission center here, and much like regular Kerbal Space Program, as soon as you unlock that orbit, it gives you your next contract, which would be in this case to explore the moon, not the mun, but we only have one moon, so we can take that. That gives us a nice advance funding. And the first steps are going to have to be to upgrade the astronaut complex so we can start doing EVAs, planting flags, and then upgrade the vehicle assembly building because the realistic mode dictates that we're going to need a lot more parts to get things done than we would in stocks. We have to do this much sooner than we would probably in stock career. Oh, and I missed the science data from space around the Earth. We can pick that one up too. We can only get 2 contracts, but that's not a problem because we're about to do. I think we can simply modify our existing rocket that we used to do our orbital burn and swipe some quick EVA science. We actually had enough Delta V last time that we would have been able to carry a significant science package with us as well and really get some of that early science going. So we have here the R1 rocket, which I used to bring Jebediah Kerman onto his first orbit in the last video. And I'm going to be making some modifications to it so that we can do this EVA. I need some more science in here because we really need to start filling out the science tree. And then I can swap out this upper stage engine for something a little lighter. Okay, so this is actually good. We were able to not only add a science package to it because this engine here, these these engines only ignite once, but these it says it can ignite 15 times. So that let me eliminate that little kind of janky solid rocket booster to return with. It's also a much lighter engine, so that gives us like increased delta V across the board, which means I was able to shrink some of these stages, save a few thousand credits, and I think have a lot more control over where my vehicle ends up this time. Okay, we have R2 on the pad here, carrying Valentina Kerman, whose face is still messed up, courtesy of the realism mod. Might just be that capsule. First, we're gonna do some totally not cheesy tests of the spacesuit, so that we can get, um, just a little bit of cheesy science here. Anyway, testing is all good. Now we can go to space. not going to worry too much about the super aggressive gravity turn. Of course, we have to start it this time, but I know that our Delta V budget is more than adequate now. So after a very lengthy final burn, we are now successfully in orbit. This is the second orbit that I've achieved in realistic Kerbal Space Program and in this career as well. Um, it's not perfect. I'm really going to need to get the upgrade for the Space Center to let me plot maneuver nodes. This engine gave me a little more trouble than I expected, but it has more than enough Delta V. Now onto the main event. We have a little bit of rotation. I had to fire the engine up again to correct it, but we still have 13 more ignitions. So now we can do the EVA and collect a whole bunch of extra science. And we also get free money for the first EVA milestone, things like that. Yeah, that's right. We've never actually recovered science from space because the one sounding rocket I did have come up here that had science instruments on board, it blew up. You saw it if you watched the montage of the first video. That was the one. And it blew up. So we're actually collecting some of the first data from space. That's going to be an awful lot of science, which will probably get us to either another 45 science node, or maybe one of the 90 science nodes. I think that's how much it added up to. All right, this looks like a good time to fire the engine back up and start that descent burn. Wow, that really only took a tap of the engine. Oh, we will even land not that far back from North Korea. Maybe the North Korean Navy will be able to pick her up this time instead of the U.S. Navy holding Jebediah Kerman hostage. Always good to make sure you collect your science data before separating, just in case you forget. So we do have our 7 science data and separation. And there we go, the second North Korean astronaut to orbit the Earth and the first to do an EVA. Valentina Kerman lands from her mission successfully. And now I can really plant a flag because it would be funny. We're back at the space station after a minor diplomatic incident when the Chinese were very unhappy to discover a North Korean flag planted on their territory. But they sent us back and let us keep all our science data, so that was polite of them. And we actually did collect quite a bit now, so we could go for a next tier technology, or we could fill out some more of the tech tree. And we got a little bit of extra funding from it, and for completing the science contract. So I was working on a probe to go to the moon and discovered a slight problem. Remember these remember these little radios icons that I had no clue what they were for? Well, apparently you need those to control your probes during at all. And most of these launch sites have them on there. But originally, when I started the game, the North and I guess the South Korean one doesn't have it either. Didn't have one of these little radios, and I didn't think anything of it. But if you don't have that, you can't control your probe until you get to an orbit that's high enough where you're actually in line for one of these other radios, and that doesn't tend to happen till around 80 kilometers. I noticed this. I noticed I had a problem with my sounding rockets, but I didn't think much of it. I had to go and actually tweak some of the config settings, and actually place my own little, technically custom, but really it should have just been there from the start. It was just missing from the config files to have a radio station here. And now we can actually get on with the second part of this problem, where even if I could control the probe, we don't have any way. I don't have patched conics yet, and I could eyeball it in stock because it's not a very hard thing to eyeball, but in the realistic mode, I've never done it before. So we're gonna have to do this. We're gonna do some creative accounting. So we're gonna go and upgrade our mission control so that we can have 7 active contracts, and I'm gonna pick uh, these contracts that give you these heavy advance, these big advance payments. So we're gonna just grab a bunch of those. The whole point here is we're just doing some creative accounting to give ourselves more credits or more Kerbal dollars to upgrade our tracking station, and now we can do flight planning. And now we have like 20 people expecting us to fulfill contracts for them, but we have bigger priorities. We're exploring the moon, so now I can get to the whole business of actually launching a lunar satellite. We're gonna just do a flyby at first. So now that North Korea has invented the radio and we've solved our financial problems, we're ready to launch our first probe to the moon. We have good signal on the pad. I'm still not entirely sure what all the details about uplink and downlink speed mean, but that's okay. All it really needs to do is let me actually control this thing all the way to the moon. And I've time warped so that I can hopefully get into a relatively good inclination. I'm not sure the exact angle I'm going to have to aim for this one, but I'm going to try my best and see how it ends up. So this orbital inclination isn't exactly the best, but I managed to make it work. And now I've got a maneuver node set up so that I can get to a moon flyby and then Earth escape, hopefully all in one shot. So we should have within a decent margin of error. I guess it's a good thing that I oversized the rocket from what I would have expected to look at from the Delta V map because of course that expects that you know how to fly, and I very clearly do not. Okay, I think that's as far as I'm going to push it. That's honestly better than I could have hoped for. Not often that your first attempt to shoot at the moon actually reaches near the moon. Now I can eject this last fuel stage and this probe can just fling itself to the moon. I'm so glad the fact that it's rotating like this isn't as big a problem as this would probably be in real life, because that satellite dish would just be spinning around hopelessly unable to communicate. This is something that was so mundane probably, but it is so much more satisfying to watch the moon get closer and realistic after kind of mastering it in stock. It's like doing it all over again. I would highly recommend trying it. Oh, there we are. We are in the moon's sphere of influence. We get some free science just for being here, extra money, some reputation, and we get a bunch, well, less. We get an extra 100,000 money and 5 science from all the world's first milestones. And we can collect some extra science from the moon. So we get 15 for that, 10 for that. We'll definitely be able to do some much nicer missions now. Okay, now I get it. I forgot that solar panels aren't as OP in this realism mod. Well, that's okay, because we're still going to be able to. We won't get the science from inner planet, from orbiting the sun, but we'll still get the milestone achievement and just the satisfaction. There are worse things that could have gone wrong with a first lunar flyby. And now we're in solar orbit. Slightly higher, slightly higher apoapsis than the Earth, but that makes sense because that's how we left and all. Did we get any more? We did. We got first flyby of the sun, orbit of the sun. We got an extra 100,000 credits and an extra 4 science just for a probe that is no longer working and we can't even get data from, but they paid us because we managed it. Explore the moon. Oh yeah, that's right. We got the contract for returning science data. So with that, with the first North Korean lunar flyby probe now drifting dead around the sun, I think this is a good place to call it. I don't want to make this too long at a time. So I think this is a good stopping point again, and I will see you all next time.